Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Enrichers. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim. I am joined here today, not only with my co-host, Tim James of
Chemical Free Body,
but we are also joined here today by actually our better halves, and we are very excited on what you're going to be learning today, not only a little bit more personal with us, but I have my better half here, Christina Wilcoxon. Tim James, why don't you go ahead and introduce your better half, and let's get the show started.
Enrichers, I am pleased to welcome you to my girlfriend and also another health warrior, Rebecca Wolf. Say hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. So Tim James, you and I, we continue this Health and Wealth Podcast. I think it's being very well received from my audience that we are obviously working with. In fact, interestingly enough, I have 3 or 4 potential guests because we have decided to go out and invite others to want to come on to the podcast. We just had our first guest last week with Scott Garcia. If you Enrichers have not seen that episode yet, you got to make sure you see it because it is all about client acquisition to be solved during this pandemic, as we call it, right? The pandemic. But it's also there's priceless amount of information for your health that Tim James shared with Scott Garcia in St. Louis, Missouri. It blew his mind. And now what he's doing is taking that information to his clients to do these 3 things that we've set out to do at CSI Financial Group better than anybody else. Elevate the client experience, create professional contrast, and then ultimately competitor-proof those ideal clients that you're working with. But I do want to go ahead and have Christina Wilcoxon say hi to everybody, all the enrichers out there.
Hello. Bam.
Yes. So it'll be interesting because in my household, and we learned this early on with our kids, we're not going to tiptoe around the house whenever they're sleeping, and they're just going to have to get used to it. But it'll be interesting because this one here is actually louder than I am. And as our enrichers know, I tend to be a little bit more gregarious and outgoing, but she's actually louder than me, believe it or not. But I think she's going to have to work her way into this whole thing.
Oh, whatever. I am not as loud. No one is as loud as you. No one is. No one.
Well.
And you have a whole staff that can agree with me.
Yeah, they're definitely in your camp whenever it comes to that. So, hey,
but it looks like you're not going to win that debate.
No, I'm not. That's for sure. But I will tell you the one thing that for you enrichers out there that are listening to the health and wealth side of this podcast for a reason, how do you grow your practice? I tell people on a regular basis. It's by phone. We're talking to advisors throughout the country, and they are getting to know us, and maybe for the first time, and I'm having conversations with them, or our sales staff is having conversations with them. But one of the things that I eventually get around to is I'll tell them, if you ever want to know what type of a salesperson I am, I'll have to introduce you to my wife because I way outfunded my coverage on this deal. So it's only because I had good salesmanship that's what I tell them.
Well, hey, what I wanted to share about this episode today, why this episode is going to be special, is because we had the ladies on. So we're normally focusing on, accumulating wealth, stacking the cash, making sure you're not paying too much in taxes, acquiring clients, all that stuff. We cover that. And then we also cover all the health stuff, boosting the immune system, longevity, flat bellies, getting rid of the gas in the bone, all these issues, losing weight, gaining muscle if you need to, all these things. But at the end of the day, why are we doing all this? There's other parts to our life besides money, and besides our health. Those are two very important forms of abundance in our life, but it's our relationships. And that's why we wanted to have the ladies on today, the women, is because this is like the key. This is why we do everything. Like a lot of guys will get up every morning and go to work, but when they have a wife and they have children, then there's that duty or obligation. Like it's just, I don't know, it just picks you up and it's like a wind behind your back. And it's the same thing for women that are the primary wage earners for their household. When you have to take care of other people that you love and care about, you just get things done. So we just wanted to bring the ladies on today because this is why we work so hard. Like, and this is why we want to have the money so we can have the freedom to, get them whatever Christmas gifts we want or take them on a vacation. It doesn't have to be some, super luxurious thing, but just, getting out of the house and going on a weekend trip or whatever. Or we want to have good health so that we don't have to become a burden to them down the road. I don't want her to be like, oh, geez, Tim's had another heart attack. Is he going to leave me? You know what I mean? It's like, wow, we got a lot of money here, but I'd rather have my boyfriend around, And likewise, I don't want her to get sick. I want her to be healthy and vibrant and feeling good. And everything's better. When your health is good, you're going to have better children, healthier kids, less sickness, less disease, better sex. I mean, everything gets better when your body is really, really, really healthy. So that's why we wanted to have the ladies on today. So I guess we'll just start off like, Rebecca, I was going to ask you, like, what's the, as far as all these forms of abundance we talked about our health, our relationships, financial, spiritual, career, all these things. What do you think is the most, or how do these things relate in your life? Does that make sense? Maybe I'm way off here. I don't know. I think I went sideways.
Well, I mean, for me, it's everything. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the root is spiritual. But then I think, like, as you go up the roots, it becomes like the relationship and it becomes the finances and it becomes being able to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Actually, Tim's the one who described that to me. That's Bashar's version. I don't know if you've heard of him yet. I'm sure he's told you about it.
We'll bring him in later.
But he talks about how the true form of abundance is being able to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And that doesn't always include money. Doesn't always include things or outside resources. But yeah, it's a huge inner journey. And for me, health and wealth all go down to the very roots, which is like a spiritual base, really.
Yeah. You actually answered my question the way I wanted you to, even though I didn't ask the question the way I was supposed to. The question was like, out of all of these forms of abundance, how would you prioritize them? Because I knew she was going to say spiritual. Like she has brought a huge component or help to me as far as the spiritual component, because that was one of the areas I was really, really weak in. So I guess I could ask you, Carter, what area are you really weak in that Christina brought into your life? And then maybe Christina, maybe you could expand on that.
Well, let me share a story with you. I'm going to take you a ways back, way before I knew anything about the business that we're in right now, way before I ever knew, Christina. Growing up as a young kid, my family was actually ended up being designated or categorized as a cult. It was called the Worldwide Church of God. And it wasn't like one of those like Waco type of things or whatever. I mean, I never felt abused. There was nothing like that, but it was deemed a cult. And so I had a really big issue when it came to like God and church and Christ and spirituality and all that stuff for quite some time. And as I got older and as I started, my maturation process and started, getting out there and realizing that we were that there is like it felt like someone was always looking over me though, even though I wasn't leaning into that. So Christina, when I met her originally, that wasn't something that was really part of her world either. And I'm a huge football fan and a sports guy in the first place. So she ended up starting to go to church with her mom, and it was on Sunday mornings. And I remember it was during football season, and she would just politely ask me, "Hey, do you want to go to church with me today?" And I was like, no, I think I'm just going to sit here and watch, the Cowboys and the Cardinals and the Chiefs. And but what would happen is, like, every Sunday, very gently and nicely, she was like, "Hey, we're going to go to church." And Caitlin was a newborn at this time. I mean, she was less than 2 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so she would ask me, "Hey, do you want to go to church?" And I was like, "Nah, I think I'm just going to sit here, big game today or whatever. But, hey, thanks for asking me." But what happened is, as she started going on her journey and her path towards that, more spirituality and getting closer to, to Jesus and this purpose and this meaning, I started noticing a change in her, right? And it wasn't like she was forcing anything on me. And she knew how I felt about religion, especially. And it wasn't something that I was really interested in doing it. But I couldn't help but to notice the changes that were going on in her life. So finally, one day, she was like, "Hey, we're going to go to church tomorrow. Do you want to go to church with us?" And I had already been sort of, fighting with this in the first place. But I thought, okay, this is the woman of my dreams. And if it's that important to her, the least I can do is at least be like, "All right, fine, I'll go." And then I'll be proven right that it's just this guy up there on stage trying to convince me to give him money. That's what it was for me, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it wasn't really much different than my issue that I had where, my buddies were like, "Hey, we're going to go to the strip club tonight," and everything. And I was like, dude, these girls don't care anything about you. They just want to get in your pocket. Like, wake up. Seriously. Like, they're not trying to take you home or whatever. Like, my bachelor days, I'm like, seriously. So I had no attraction, if you will, going to strip clubs. It kind of sort of felt like that same idea. Like, we're going to go to church and this guy's just going to try to get in my pocket and give him money and call it tithing or, an offering or whatever. I'm not interested. A lot of that had to do with my past and the church that I grew up in. But because I cared that much about her and she was that meaningful to me, I was like, fine, I'll go there. And then I can come home and I can be like, "I told you, that's all that it's about," right?
Yeah, but that's not how it happened, because you went to see Robert Kiyosaki.
Well, but I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Let me tell.
Christina, just really quick, you're going to have to speak up a little bit because you're farther away from the microphone. I don't want anybody to miss any words from you, so you might have to speak just a little bit louder.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will.
Yeah. So, and look, hey, by the way, it's her first podcast. She's still just learning.
And I'm like so far away.
Well, you put her clear back in the back, dude.
It's true. Let me turn up the volume but so what ended up happening, this is pre Robert Kiyosaki, what I'm telling the story about.
Oh, okay.
So what ended up happening is that I went to church with her, and then I was like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad." And then maybe I didn't go the next Sunday. Remember, this is 16 years ago, right? So
yeah.
15, 16 years ago. So then I was like, all right, well, I'll go with you again this week. There's not a game on until later in the afternoon that's important to me. So, all right, I'll go to church with you again. So I went again. I was like, oh, that's not so bad. So then what ended up happening as I started like enjoying it, and then her life was even changing that much better, and our lives together started becoming better. You want to add something, Christina?
Yeah, thank you. He enjoyed it, but he was still not convinced that it was real, what I was feeling, or my relationship with God was real. So a sister church does this like weekly, like yearly, and it's for a week, and they have all these guest speakers come. And I went with my mom because she goes to all those kinds of things, and we went. And
It was actually called Faith Explosion.
called
So it's an annual event for a week long. They have guest speakers come in from all over.
So we went and saw Jesse Duplantis, I think is who it was, and we went and we watched him, but they said tomorrow night will be Robert Kiyosaki, and from who wrote the book Rich Man Poor Dad, and I was like, oh my gosh! I told my mom, I looked at, this is it. You got to take Carter. He loves Robert Kiyosaki. He will absolutely come because he will want to hear what Robert Kiyosaki has to say. This is the opening for him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went home and I said, hey, want to go with my mom tomorrow to see Robert Kiyosaki? And he said, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Robert Kiyosaki is going to be there? Like Rich Dad, Poor Dad author? Are you joking me right now? I'm like, absolutely. I mean, it was totally, for me, it was totally selfish. That was the only thing that I was planning on getting out of it. But what ended up happening, Tim and Rebecca, is that I go into the church and there's all this energy, right? Like this positive energy, because our smaller church was literally like, it was in a cafeteria of a school, and there's like, the congregation is like, 18 people, right? Totally. So I go into this massive church, Living Word Bible Church, shout out to them. And I go in and there's all this positive energy. And I remember I'm there, my mother-in-law, Terry, is right next to me. And I'm on the very edge of the aisle. Like, my escape route is like, okay, if I got to get out of here real fast, I'm at the very end of the aisle. So, for whatever reason that might be. So I'm sitting there, or I'm standing there actually, and they're like doing the praise and worship and everything, and all this like positive energy, and like something like all of a sudden, like this, like the Holy Spirit just like is like hitting me, and I'm fighting it. I'm pushing back, and I'm like, why do I feel like I'm getting ready to start crying? Like overwhelmed with this positivity that I have never felt in my life, right? Anyway, long story short, Robert Kiyosaki speaks. It's an incredible, presentation and everything. And I go home.
This is the best part.
Yeah.
Because he comes home, I'm in bed, and he's like, I was like, so how did it go tonight? Like, how was it? And he was like, it was good. He's like, and then he kind of got like somber almost. Like he goes, okay, but I need to tell you something. And I was like,
don't be mad at me.
Don't be mad at me. Yeah, that's what he said. Don't be mad at me. But I gave an offering tonight. And I was like, what?
You took money out of your pocket, you put it in the envelope, and you gave it away. Wait, what?
It was like seriously like the biggest breakthrough. Long story short, he got saved.
No. That's not how this operation works. That's not how this operation works.
I'm sorry.
We aren't long story short people. It's a podcast, and we're going an hour long. Okay. So to continue the story, don't worry, I'll edit that part out.
No, that's staying.
Yeah. So to continue the story, I'm driving my car. This is whenever I just got into this space. Now I'm driving my car and I'm listening to one of the local church, stations, plays the praise music and everything. And the guy comes over the radio and he goes, hey, we got this contest we got going on and everything. If anybody wants to call in and tell their story about, what brought you to Jesus, and to piggyback on what Christina said, I ended up becoming saved and everything. In fact, it was January 8th, 2005, 2004, 2005.
2005 sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's right. So January 8th, I remember simply because it's her stepdad, my father-in-law's birthday. It's also Elvis's birthday. So I'll never forget January 8th. It was in the, and Elvis was the king, when I was growing up. So it was actually, we got baptized in our local community pool together at one time with our pastor of our church and everything. So that was an experience we had. So I'm driving to work where I had just started in this space and I'm working like Monday through Friday, 7 to 4. But as I'm still trying to get my business off the ground, I'm bartending at night at a local restaurant. So I'm just trying to keep food on the table. Christina is a stay-at-home mom and taking care of Caitlin, our daughter. So I'm driving in and he's like, hey, if anybody wants to share their story about, how they got saved and everything. So I called in, and I never call in a radio station. So I call in and I tell them that story, basically, much more condensed version, but I tell them that story. And as I'm talking to them, I'm even like welling up as I'm telling the story. So I get a phone call later that day or later on, says, hey, by the way, we want to let you know you won the contest. Like, your story was the most compelling story of everybody that called in and everything. So come on down to the radio station and get your prize and whatever it was. But that was, for
whatever
me.
Whatever it was, I still have it.
It is a necklace.
I literally still have it.
Yeah.
I still have the necklace. I mean,
Is it cross?
No,
it was like kind of
like
this,
turquoise and
Like it's like rapper bling or what?
like it's like almost like an Indian
Yeah.
turquoise, whatever. I never wore it.
Uh.
It's very big, but I kept it all these years because of how we got it.
So this is a quick little insert here for our estate plan portfolio. That's why you have the importance of getting your affairs in order, is that you're going to have these sentimental items that don't have a intrinsic value. They actually have sentimental value to you. And you want to make sure that you got the plan in place, that goes to exactly who you want to. Because otherwise, your kids may ransack your house whenever you're gone and take whatever it is that they want. Anyway, that's just...
Just so you know, he's always has that cap on. It's called ABC, always be closing.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah. It's imperative.
You can relate to that, right?
What?
Tell them what I always do to everything in life.
What? Oh, he tries to turn everything into a business opportunity. Like everything. Like, we go and buy peanut butter and he's like, oh my God, we could create a business out of this.
Well, it wouldn't be peanut butter because it has aflatoxins in it.
Okay,
but
not peanut
maybe sprouted almond butter.
That's funny. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. So I wanted to make a comment. So, Christina, it looks like that you are a very intelligent lady, because, what I did when I first changed my health is I went around and I tried to force my ideals down everybody's throat, or just questioning, why the hell are you doing this? I drove all my friends and family away from me. But you had a commitment to your faith, and you had a commitment to Carter, and it sounds to me like you just sat there and you just stayed committed. You didn't push him. You just kept offering and offering and offering and offering and offering, and you waited very quietly. And then Robert Kiyosaki shows up and you're like, this is it, baby. This is going to be the day. And so she did that without pressuring you.
Yes.
And that's why it worked. And that's why it works so well. So I think this is a big takeaway from this podcast for all of you couples out there, is that if you want, you want a change in the other person, your spouse, the first thing to do is change yourself and stay consistent with those changes so they can see your improvement. Because you said that, Carter, you're like, yeah, she just kept going and I noticed her changing. Yep. And that creates curiosity, and then it has to become your idea. It can't be their idea of putting something on you. I think that's just another prime example. Like, I teach a class now called, I can't remember what the exact title is, but it's how to handle friends and family when you're making a transition in your life, basically. Whatever that may be, whether you're changing your diet or you're changing your faith or whatever you're saying you're going to do, because your friends and family are like, yeah, whatever, yeah, right. You're never going to fall through that, right? Yep. But then you stick that commitment and you stick to it, and you stay and you're steady. It doesn't matter how the wind blows. You just keep adjusting your sail and you just keep on target, and you just keep going. And eventually, those who are going to come along. That's actually a gift, Christina, that you gave to Carter, because you give the gift, you just kept throwing it out there, and then you just walked away from it and allowed him to finally open that gift when he was ready. So I think that was really cool.
It's so true. It's the difference between love and attachment, because true love is freedom. It's accepting people as they are and allowing them the space to come to their own realizations. where attachment is like that pressure. Like I've been talking to people about this a lot the past couple of weeks, is like when you apply pressure to something, it doesn't have any space to grow. Like that's pressurized. It's like,
Oh yeah.
together that way. So
Yeah. A lot of people
gift.
feel that from childhood, from parents, the pressuring.
Mhm.
Like, you have to get A's to get into Stanford. It's like pressure, or you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to be on the football team because I was on the football team, son. Right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe they want to be on the soccer team, or maybe they want to play the flute.
Well,
Like Carter.
well,
That's
exactly.
actually really funny because like with our kids, especially our daughter, when she was at the right age, I guess, to start like t-ball or like softball, right? Because I went to college on a softball scholarship, so they everybody kind of in my world and friends and family just assumed like I would push my daughter into softball. And I never did. I would get it all the time. Why doesn't your daughter play softball? Because that's not her. That was my path. That's not her path. Her path is a totally different path. And I definitely agree that parents tend to think that their kids have to go on the same path. And that's just it's not healthy, I don't think. I don't think it's healthy at all.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. So why don't we just take a quick break, and when we get back, let's get into how we all met each other.
Perfect.
We'll be right. Yeah, we'll be right back.
If you build it, they will come. For most financial advisors, the subject of estate planning for their clients is relegated to a side activity, only to be left to disconnected third-party outsourcing. Rather than recognizing the opportunities it inherently provides, advisors very often view estate planning-related work as a time-consuming, unproductive process. Unfortunately, this kind of remiss and costly attitude is derived mostly from unquestioning acceptance of half-truths or even outright fiction. Another factor is simply the lack of relevant knowledge and a team of experts to partner with. Hello, I'm Carter Wilcoxon, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group and architect of the Advisor Partner Platform. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to update you on how this one-of-a-kind and unprecedented process has changed the lives for so many. When we set out on this journey to connect advisors with clients, we never imagined that we would actually find out that clients or prospective clients needed advisors just as much. The knowledge that we have gained when making accessible our entire team approach has brought to the general public a seamless, cost-effective, and comprehensive way to have true peace of mind. Because of this, when our advisor partners use this collaborative effort, the reward for them at the end has been nothing short of life-changing. All too often we hear words like revolutionary, innovative, or turnkey when describing something to make it more than it is. And in this IMO world that we've been competing in, those are descriptions of empty promises that have given this industry an unenviable reputation. So, after almost 2 decades of being pigeonholed and forced to be part of a system that we didn't create, it was our true intention to recreate. CSI Financial Group is paving the way for what we now call ourselves, a Practice Development Organization, or PDO. Our Advisor Partner Platform is just the beginning of what we are building, and we are encouraging those who are wanting to truly transform their business and stand out from the rest to come learn more. When you partner with us, you'll get all the exclusive tools, resources, and processes needed to cement your ideal clients while creating professional contracts. We look forward to hearing from you and sharing more. Thank you.
What's up, Enrichers? It's Carter and Tim. We're back with the ladies, Christina and Rebecca. And let's just jump into this, Carter. So maybe the Enrichers would like to know, like, how you guys met, how that all play out.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting story. And if you guys stay around long enough, you're going to get to learn this and so much more. The next segment is actually the one that we're going to give you all the information about, how to stay healthy and wealthy. But as I said, previously, maybe I said it during some of our conversations, and I say this on a regular basis, I outpunted my coverage on this deal. But my former life prior to this is I used to be a national trainer for P.F. Chang's. And as a server and a bartender, one day, and maybe Christina, you can talk a little bit about how you even got to P.F. Chang's, but as the story goes, there was she used to be a national trainer for Cheesecake Factory. So the P.F. Chang's down south in Chandler opened up. It was a freestanding building, but the mall that opened behind it, one of the anchor restaurants was Cheesecake Factory. So she started at Cheesecake Factory there when they first opened, maybe 3 months after we had opened. By the way, right before 9/11. So that's when we first started at those stores. So I remember that there was this girl that started working at P.F. Chang's, and I immediately was like, whoa, like there was just something that attracted me, like the law of attraction. She had it. So the problem was that she only worked there part-time. So there was a host that worked at our P.F. Chang's, but also was a host at the Cheesecake Factory. And he said to Christina, Montgomery, shout out to Montgomery, said to Christina, and maybe you want to tell that story a little bit about how you got to P.F. Chang's from Montgomery.
Yeah, so Montgomery and me were really good friends, and he was like, hey, Christina, I just got a host job over at P.F. Chang's. You should come be a hostess over at P.F. Chang's part-time. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything better to do. Okay. And he's like, okay, well, come over to lunch and I'll introduce you to one of the managers and see if it's right. So I went over and had lunch, and it was Bobby, our manager.
Bobby, yeah.
Came out, and I didn't really have to sign anything. They're like, hey, it's a hostess job. So, it's not like you have to be highly qualified. You have to be able to
hi.
And, say hi and have a smile. So, he said, hey,
you're hired.
When can you work? And I said, well, my schedule is pretty, I work a lot of hours over at Cheesecake, but I can work maybe 2 days a week with you, maybe 3. And he was like, okay, done. We'll take you. So I started working over there, but me and Carter, we only worked one of those nights together. Every Wednesday night we would work together. And, he was very, as the phrase goes with the P.F. Changers, he was very changerific. He had the most pristine uniform because he ironed it like with heavy starch where you have the little, like he owned his job. Like he was all in with being P.F. Chang's, and he would just come up and talk to me, and we got to know each other. And then I don't know, maybe a month into it, give or take, he came up, and he's always a salesperson, so he came
always be
up,
closing.
And as I was leaving, because since I was the first, the last hire, I was always the first cut. So I would leave really early in the night. And so one of the nights he goes, hey, it'd be really great for you to really connect with all of us at P.F. Chang's. One of such and such is having their birthday over at, I think, Kona Grill off of Mill Avenue. You should totally come so you can get to know everybody.
It's a great way to get to know everybody. You just started working here.
Can I get your phone number so I can call you when we're all headed over there and you can meet us? And I was like, sure, totally. Awesome. Here's my number. Call me when you're all done. I'm totally down. Well, I left and I proceeded to turn off my phone.
Now in her defense, she didn't necessarily tell me this, but she was dating somebody else at the time. So, that's why she turned her phone off immediately. So the next time I see her, which is the following Wednesday, so mind you, I'm having to, on a 1 day a week basis, build from the previous week, whatever it was that I'm trying to get to the finish line, right? To close, if you will. So I'm like, hey, it was so weird. I called you. I kept calling you that night, but it kept going straight to voicemail. What was your excuse?
I said, I don't know what happened. I don't know what
it could have been.
Well, I mean, back then it was like those little flip phones.
Yeah.
It was like, whatever, things have changed over. Anyway, so fast forward maybe a month later, I never go out because I'm working these 2 jobs. Someone says, hey, Christine, you want to go to reverse happy hour? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out. Yeah, I'm going to reverse happy hour tonight. And so I went up to Carter and I said, hey, are you going to go with everybody for reverse happy hour? And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, I am.
No, that's not what I said.
Yeah, you said, yes, you did.
No, that's not what I said.
And
that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Okay.
That's not what I said. What I said was, watch your face when I say this. I said, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But he had no idea what I was even doing.
I didn't have a clue. No one told me about it. And now remember, I'm the lead server at PF Chang's at this time, national trainer, right? So I get to pick my own schedule. So I work Monday through Thursday night close, right? In the restaurant. And as you know, PF Chang's is pretty busy. So I'm making money hand over fist.
Tuesday through Friday and Saturday. Oh no. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
So I work Monday through Thursday night close, Friday lunch close, which means that when I'm done with my shift on Friday, I don't have to be back to work till Monday night. Huge long weekend, right? And I'm doing it again, hand over fist. Anyway, so no one's told me that this whole thing is going on, but I don't let her think that at all. So I go up to my fellow serving closer, Lindsay, and I go, hey, I said, what's going on? Where's everybody going? Oh, we're all going up to Raw up at, behind Cheesecake Factory and everything or Kona Grill. Sorry, Kona Grill for, we're just going to hang out, reverse happy hour. It's like from 10 to 1 in the morning. So I was like, all right, cool. So I close. Now they're all already there and everything. So we get there at about maybe 10:15, 10:30 or something like that. And Christina's having an appletini, and I'm having maybe it's a sake bomb or whatever it is. So she has a couple of them. It's getting ready to close down. The server comes up to Christina, and she pretty much had just ordered her last apple martini, and comes up. She's like, "Hey, last call," and everything. And she looks at me. She goes, "Hey, do you think I should get one more?"
Absolutely.
I said, absolutely.
But the best part of the whole story is afterwards. So then afterwards, everybody leaves.
Look in the camera, sweetheart.
Everybody leaves, and he comes up to me and he said, "Hey, we're all going to go over to Stadium Club, which is like
it's like a dive bar
that has karaoke and stuff. You should come over and do karaoke with us." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." So I get there. I get to Stadium Club first. I go inside. No one's there. I come outside. Carter is walking up, and I said, "Okay, we're the only ones here. Maybe we should wait out here for everybody else." And he's like, "No, we should just go inside and hang out, and they'll just eventually
they'll all show up.
They'll just show up." Well, no one was ever going to show up because he invited me.
So, and at the time I had this Corvette yellow 63 Chevy pickup and everything. And that I literally drove out like the Beverly Hillbillies. It was primer gray when I moved out from Kansas City to Phoenix. And it was quite the upgrade whenever I got the paint job on it. But, it was one of those things where I just knew. When you just know, right, Tim? You just know. And I knew she was it. I knew she was dating somebody by this time and everything. But I was doing everything I could to do whatever I had to do to get this one, right? So that's why I was like, hey, yeah, we're all going to go to Stadium Club, do karaoke and everything. So what ended up happening is we go inside, we order a pitcher of beer, we're having a good time. And so I serenaded her, if you will. I sang Dobie Gray's Drift Away in front of, everybody. And from that point on, she was pretty much sold.
Yeah. Yeah. We started dating maybe like a month and a half later, and then we were engaged by August, and then we got married the next year. Yeah. So it was pretty quick. My mom and, my parents were like, whoa, this is super quick. And
Miss Independent, by the way.
Yeah,
she's like, I ain't got time for guys.
And for me, I wasn't a big dater. I didn't like kind of the whole process of, I have to tell someone where I'm going to be. Like, I got to
answer to somebody.
Yeah, I've always been very independent. I like that aspect. And so that was kind of the struggle when we first started dating. He's like, sweetheart, you got to tell me where you're going to be and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah. That's right.
So anyway, so that is a long story short. That's how we met. But, and I know we're going to talk about, maybe a little bit more how, or we've talked on a previous show, how Tim, you and I met. But what I want to know is, how the heck did Rebecca go, yeah, I'll go out with you. I can't wait to get
You tricked me. That's what happened.
Yeah, so I get a phone call from a buddy of mine. He's a chiropractor. He's like, hey, man. He's like, I just had this girl referred to me. She's plant-based, which is rare. And she's a personal trainer. I'm like, okay, plant-based. She's really into health. She's into taking care of her body. I'm like, wow, this is great. And he goes, I think she'd be a good coach for you. And I'm like, great. Set us up. So I got her number. I called her, and I just literally called her, and I was like, this is a business appointment. We met at a plant-based restaurant. You remember the name of it? The Blossoming Lotus. And yeah, and we had lunch. We just talked about it and stuff like that, and just business and stuff. I gave her some products, and off she goes. And then she met my water lady. We call her Water Woman, Danusha. I don't know if you guys have talked to her yet or not.
Yep.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, Danusha calls me up like a couple days later. She's like, hey, I just met with Rebecca, and she just bought a machine. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that was fast. And she goes, yeah, 45 minutes after I did my presentation, Rebecca had her credit card out and she was buying the machine. I was like, damn it. I was like, that was faster than I did it. I go, she must be really smart, because it took me probably like 6-7 hours, because, I had to go back to work and stuff. But as soon as I got off my coaching program, then I called her up, said, I got to get this. So I was really impressed that she bought that water machine that fast, because that told me that she's really interested in herself and her health and longevity, and just the health thing was strong with this one. So that was really cool. But there still wasn't, I literally wasn't thinking about like dating her like at all. I was really focused on my business. And then the next day, Danusha calls me up. She's like, hey, Rebecca and I are going to this Kangen event, and you should come by. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, I've got yoga. I'm busy. I can't do it. So I go to yoga, and I'm leaving yoga. And at the yoga studio, one of my favorite instructors, who I'd seen her totally transform her life with yoga and stuff, she comes up to me. She's like, Tim, the partner yoga thing is tomorrow, or it's tonight, or something like that. Or tomorrow was it? It was that night. And she goes, you have to come. And I'm like, well, I got divorced. I don't have a partner anymore. And she's like, I'll just get somebody. She goes, the first time I went, she goes, I grabbed a guy from class and found out later he was 17. We had a great time. And it's like, she goes, the way the picture showed, it was like showing like very athletic poses, like the guy's holding the girl above him. You know what I mean? I was like, wow. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking about like, God, who could I get? And then I knew Danusha and Rebecca were down at this event. And Danusha calls me up, and she's like, hey, we're on our break right now. We're going to lunch. And I was like, well, what are you going to get for food down there? Because where they're at the airport, it's just crap food. I mean, it's terrible. And both these gals are really into health. So I'm like, well, I just got done with yoga. How about I stop by this local food place that makes a lot of raw food, and I'll just bring you guys some lunch. They're like, oh my God, that's great. So I stop by, grab some stuff, drive down there. And then Danusha's like pulling me in. She's like, Tim, you just have to come in and listen to one speaker, just one speaker. You got to come in, I'm like, fine. And then next speaker. And it was like 3 speakers later. And finally, like, I got to go. So Rebecca and I are sitting there goofing off while the speakers are going. We're holding our legs out to see who can hold our legs up the longest. We're having this competition. And then finally I was like, right before I left, I was like, hey, there's this partner yoga thing tonight. Do you want to go? I've always wanted to go. And she's like, you know what? She's like, I've been thinking about yoga. Yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay. So then we go to the partner yoga, and then I'll let you kind of take over and tell your version, because I know we have a little bit different versions.
Well, no, you said it right, because at first he told me, well, after the math, he told me that it was a couples yoga. But when we showed up, he told me that it was partner yoga, and I thought the same thing, like it was a super acrobatic, like you're doing crazy poses. And then we get there, and then we show up, and they're like, all right, it's couples yoga. And I was like, what? And then we go into this yoga class, and it's literally like the most intimate thing. We're like staring into each other's eyes.
Like 70%. I felt guilty. I'm like, can I even do this? I didn't really know her. You know, it's like.
It was so funny. I mean, you have your hands in like some of the most intimate places, like the lower part of your back, and you're just holding it there, and you're like rubbing your hands back and forth, and so we just had a really deep, intimate connection, because obviously you're just staring into each other's eyes. We both left that class, and we were just both like, whoa, like what just happened?
Yeah. And
I recommend couples yoga to everybody, because it's so powerful, because it really teaches you how to have like that deeper sensitivity towards the other person and accepting them where they're at in their own journey.
Be present for your partner, to really just like forget about everything else, and it's just you and them, and like literally it's just like just staring. It's if you don't want to go to yoga, just maybe sit down and try this. Just sit down and like just set a clock for 5 minutes, a stopwatch, and then just look at each other's eyes for 5 minutes and don't talk. And it's magical. I mean, it literally is. It's like you go to a whole nother world of experience. How many of us take the time to do that? We don't. And I actually experienced that before with another guy Merrill, who she knows. Him and I became lifelong friends, and they did this exercise where we stared in each other's eyes, and I was like, he was like my father, and because me and my father, my dad had a hard time saying. He never told me. I was 21. He never told me he loved me, never once. And I don't remember if I told him I loved him. I know I did as a kid, but so I'm driving back from Portland to Eastern Oregon, driving up to the farm, and I'm like freaking out for 5.5 hours while I'm driving. And I get there, and I'm just like, and I'm trying to build up the courage, and I run into my dad at the table. I'm like, Dad, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, I love you, and I ran. I just ran, get the hell out of there. And I went to my room and sat down, because I'm just like, I didn't even know I was still in college or whatever. But anyway, so back to our story. So that night, I told her we were going to meet up anyway, because I was going to show her how to make a living food dinner, because she was into raw foods and plant-based. But I was like, I had another level. Like, I'm growing my shit, right? I'm growing sprouts and everything. So we had that planned out anyway. I was going to show her all that stuff. So we just did the partner yoga thing, couples yoga. Which became like super intimate yoga. And we come back, I make dinner, and then it just worked out. It just worked out really well for us.
Been hanging out since.
It worked out really well. So guys, if you want to, if you have a lady in your life that you really want to make yours, you can either tell her absolutely, have another drink, take her to karaoke, or take her to couples yoga and make her a living food salad. Those are 2 really good options.
Hey, it worked for us.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. It really did.
I think at the end, how relationships work, to be honest, is just that, and how you grow with one another, but you're still growing separately.
Smart.
It's like a tree that grows in 2 opposite directions. Like the base, the root system is the same, but you have 2 branches that are breaking off.
Yeah, that and it's so awesome to hear your guys' passion that it's so similar, because I get that relationships work all the time. You hear it, opposites attract, but I don't know. There's just something powerful when you just have your best bud that you get to live life with, and you see each other at the same level. I feel like it's on a whole different level.
Well,
Yeah.
If I was to give anybody, and this will be advice that I give my son, for sure, as a man one day, is that be selective, right? Don't settle for anything in life. But when you find somebody, of course, it's going to be really easy, because he's, as the saying goes, you usually tend to lean towards how your mom was. So he's already going to have somebody that he has in mind. But my suggestion or my recommendation for anybody who's looking to, is this the right one or not? You guys have to have things in common. There's just no way that you can't have things in common if you're going to have a successful relationship, whether that's marriage or, connected in any length of time whatsoever. It's inevitable that it will not work out if you don't have things that you have in common. And that's why you hear so often people that get divorced, you're like, they were married for 45 years. Like, what happened? Because they had nothing in common. Now, they may have initially had things in common, but to your point, Rebecca, you have to, and you too, Christina, man, these girls are smart. How do we get so lucky? Like, you have to be able to grow separately, but together. The roots are the same, and you have to give yourself room. And you said something earlier, maybe on the previous segment, Rebecca, about when you apply pressure, there's no room to be able to grow. And you can only give so much room or so much ability. And you have to give somebody that freedom so you're not suffocating them. Like, you hear this all the time. I felt suffocated. There's a reason for that. But that's where a lot of times that spiritual and that faith and believing that you are in this foxhole together and you're fighting for the right causes together. That's why having things in common are critical for a long-lasting, successful marriage relationship, whichever way you want to look at it. So, Tim, maybe you want to have one last thing you want to talk about. I know we're going to have another segment on some other things. Let me just hand it over to you, partner.
Well, I think we covered how we met, so that's good. And I think there's some I wasn't expecting it, but hopefully some gold nuggets for those of you listening that you can take home and implement in your relationships or the relationship that you want, whether that's how to acquire or most of it, the deep connective stuff. I think was like, for those of you that are already in a relationship, or when you do get into a relationship, how important it is to have that commitment, to yourself, to your faith, and to your partner, and then also what Rebecca said is give them space to grow. But eventually, you can give people time to grow, but if it's month after month, year after year, and there's no growth, then maybe you need to go find a new plot of land. I mean, that's what it really boils down to. So. Anyway, so I think that wraps that up. We'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about a lot of health stuff. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
Enrichers, we're back. It's Carter Wilcoxon and Tim James. We got the ladies in the house, Christina and Rebecca. Let's talk everything health. Let's make it simple, because we know Carter's got to hit the back nine and Christina's got an appointment.
Yep.
So what for health? Like, what just tell us your morning routine, guys. And then after that, give us your number one tip, each one of you. So Christina, what's your morning routine for your health?
I have this morning routine.
Oh, the same. Okay. Well, what's that?
Yeah. So he actually gets all our mound of supplement pills. I swear, it's like we keep on adding another one and another one and another one. That it's just like this big pile of stuff. Anywhere from vitamin C, vitamin D,
collagen, and
magnesium, you name it, we take it. Like that's our kind of morning routine. We take a green juice every morning.
Wow, where did you get that?
And
why don't you show the enrichers in case anybody's watching exactly what it is that we're doing in the morning?
Yes.
There it is, Green 85.
And I love it.
This will be my new head. I'll just put it right here. It's my new head.
And to be honest, to all the enrichers listening, if you do not take a green supplement, you need to.
If you don't drink greens, your life will be blue.
Yes, you have to take one every day. So, water. I usually try to drink. This is what I carry it everywhere, but it's my water, and I try to down one of these first thing in the morning. And that's kind of how our routine is that that's what we do.
Yeah. On the health side of the routine and everything, the first thing that I do, and I'm up first. Now, I will tell you that I might be the worst whenever it comes to maintaining my health. In fact, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even be doing the supplements. I wouldn't be doing anything. She's adamant about it. With me being 6.5 years older than her, she's like, hey, I want us to be together a long time. Actuarially speaking, I'm supposed to predecease her even if we were the same age. So that much of a gap, I don't want her, 15 years on this earth longer than I am. So I'm doing the things I can. But because I'm building, a couple businesses simultaneously, it's not unusual for me to get up at 2:00 in the morning, which I hate because I know, and Tim, you beat this into my head as well. Sleep is so critical, and I got to tell you that I have been taking a little bit of they just passed the laws here in Arizona and Nevada. It's okay. We got a little bit of a half a gummy that I'm taking to induce that sleep. So I slept in this morning till like 10 after 7, which is like sleep until noon back in the old days for me. So that's been critically important. Sleep is so critical. I know you can touch on that a little bit more, but I have my routine. I am the first one up almost without fail, and I get up. But the first thing I do is I drink water. That's the first thing I do, is to kind of get the body recirculated again, and that alkaline water that I have. And I know you're going to give a good tip, but that you gave to me earlier. Making sure you're adding some mineral to that water as well, either with it or after you drink it, because it may not taste that good. Anyway, so it's really the supplements, the water, getting rehydrated to get the morning started and everything. And then it's gotten a little bit too cold recently, but what we were doing is we were going out on like a 3.5 mile walk every single morning, which was a twofer. It was exercise was great, but it was also a chance for us to disconnect from everything around us, whether that's devices or whatever the case may be, and then us reconnecting with one another on those walks, talking about whatever it is that we were doing. So that's one of those things that was hugely beneficial for me. And as it's starting to get warmer again here in Phoenix, we'll start doing those walks again. But it's not light here until 6:30, 7:00 in the morning. So if we went out when we had to, so I didn't take away from the business building part of things, we were going out and starting at 5:00 in the morning, but the sun's up in the summertime here at 5:00 in the morning. So that's sort of
sounds like you need some headlamps.
Yeah. That's kind of his healthy thing. But I think honestly, the biggest thing for me to give to the enrichers is don't be afraid to grocery shop on the perimeter of this grocery store and cook your own food at home. I think is the biggest thing that is healthy for me. I mean, I love exercising, so I work out every day. I think sunshine, exercising, and really understanding what you're putting in your body are so huge and crucial to living your best life, so to speak. So I just try to, again, plant that in my kids and into my husband, but I don't overpower them with wanting them to have to do exactly how I do it, because I think that if my whole family would probably hate me if I wanted to do exactly like, you're gonna eat this time or whatever. My
Right.
son pushes back a lot on me with all of that, but he's gotten used to it, like me adding certain things into his diet, and he's like, whatever, Mom, you and your organic ways, like trying to vegetables into me. It's like, but I just do the best I can. But that's the biggest thing that I can't stress enough about is cooking real food that you can read, that come from the ground and our earth, and eat more greens and vegetables. Like they taste good too. They're yummy.
Yep. Awesome.
What about you guys? What's your separate routines or morning routines?
Go ahead.
I think they're somewhat similar, but I wake up and I go out. I do my flax water, which goes in and coats all my intestines. And then I put a little bit of those Anderson mineral drops in there. And then I do my Green 85. And then I do all my other supplements, which is the Toxin Detox, the Gut Cleanse Plus, Gut Detox, the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, and I also do Brain On. And so I do all that, and then I make a matcha latte, and then I go into my space and I sit down and I like to read something. Usually something that helps me to come back to presence, and to kind of just start my day with like being in a state of love, and just kind of remembering that aspect, because I feel like it's so easy to just go off of autopilot and just like live your day kind of very habitually, but to really drop into presence and like your heart center, for me, that requires like a little bit of work. So I sit down, I read something, and then I like to get out and do some form of exercise, whether it's yoga or trail running. I really got into trail running a couple months ago, and we actually saw 12 deer the other day.
Whoa.
Yeah,
so
dude.
cool.
There was this, for those of you listening, there's a black tail buck. There was 5 bucks. Little one, bigger. And then there was this great big, huge, thick, heavy horn, great big, massive buck. And they just came out of the rut where they were mating. We walked down there, and I got within like 10, 15 yards of them. We were taking pictures and stuff. They didn't even care. They're just like eating away. No big deal. It was really cool.
Yeah. And I like to come home and I like to make fresh spring juice, and then I sit down and get into my work for the day, which I work with Tim. So I write blogs and I create content and I coach people, and yeah,
she's a great coach. All of her clients absolutely love her, and I hear nothing but praise. So how much she's helped them change their life, it's a big deal. I think everybody should have a coach. If you're ever struggling in an area, get a coach. Get somebody that can help you out.
Or therapist, same thing in my eyes. But
accountability and guidance.
Yeah, and someone who can just hold space for you unconditionally. Like they don't have any bias. They don't have any like previous, impression of you. Just someone who shows up fresh, and they're just willing and wanting to see like what's alive in you in that moment.
Yeah. Well, for me, my mornings, what I like to do, my perfect morning, which it's not always perfect, but it's a pretty good habit. I like to wake up and I get a quart jar and I fill it up with that purified, restructured water. I slam it as fast as I can. I put after that, I put a little Himalayan salt on my hand, not much, and just throw it in my mouth and do that. And the reason I do that, because you asked earlier, is because we purify our water. We want it to be triple purified, and that removes 99.9% of all the garbage out there, toxic chemicals and everything. So you have a clean water. We run it through that system that alkalizes it, restructures it so you can actually absorb it. But then it is missing some minerals and stuff like that. So that's why I always put the salt in afterwards. And then I turn right around, I fill up another one, I put a scoop of that Green 85 juice formula mix in there, shake that up, and then I'll drink down my gut detox, toxin detox, and what else do I take? It just depends. Oh, there's another product from Meta Organics I take called Non-Stress because it's got Shilajit in it. It's really good. But I take that, and then I also have like a matcha latte with her. Let's see, and then after that, that's pretty much my morning routine. I would also say probably the biggest number one thing that was a game changer for me was not eating breakfast anymore, the heavy breakfast, and replacing that with liquid nourishment. That was an absolute huge shifter for me. It took a while because the blood sugar and stuff to balance out. But these greens really help because of the high protein content of absorbable proteins that are already broken down into amino acids help to regulate like my blood sugar. So for those of you listening, just to be clear, if you are type 2 diabetic, anorexic, or bulimic, then we wouldn't recommend like you to get off of heavy food and go right to liquid nourishment. For the bulimic and the anorexics, we don't want you to think, oh, here's another permission slip to not eat, okay, or to throw up. But for the type 2 diabetics, it actually can be dangerous. So we have them switch to a monolithic diet. What that means is you eat one food source, which would be a big green leafy salad or just a bowl of like sprouted quinoa that you've cooked. Eat that one food source, and that be your first baby step into the point where once your blood sugars are regulated and you're not on your beds anymore, then you can replace that heavy meal with liquid nourishment. And what ends up happening is people talk about fasting all the time and the benefits of fasting. That's one of the benefits of the keto diet, is that they're really pushing the intermittent fasting component out into the world, and it's huge. But when people get scared of fasting, on my other podcast, the Health Hero Show, there's actually an episode on fasting. You guys can watch it if you want to and go into detail on it. But what it is that everybody's fasting because you go to sleep, and from all night long while you're sleeping, you're fasting.
Yep.
But when you have breakfast, break fast, that's why it's called breakfast, you stop that natural detoxification process, and you don't want to do that. You want to continue that. So what ends up happening is when you replace it with liquid nourishment, your body continues to detox and continues to push stuff out and clean up your body and clean up dead cells, very important, and rest the digestive tract, right? So this is very, very important. It's a very powerful way. So all you're doing is replacing breakfast. You're not skipping it. You're not going to die. You're getting massive amounts of nutrients into the body, but in liquid form without all the burden of digestion, so that in 20 minutes it's into your bloodstream and into your cells. Now, I know some of you listening around, what about the fiber? We need fiber. You're absolutely right. We do need fiber, but we're not juicing to get fiber. We're juicing to get nutrients into the body without the burden of digestion. We want to continue that fast, continue the cleanup and the nourishment, basically enrichment to the cells, so that you can, and your body will just turn around and start healing up, and you'll start losing weight, you'll start sleeping better, and you'll see it to be true.
And isn't it a kind of like there's been like studies that the longer that you fast, you can actually heal your body from certain diseases because your body isn't having to, digest food, so to speak. So it's kind of helps. So
yeah, it's actually magic. You can do like a 3-day water fast and completely reset your immune system.
Yeah,
like think about what I just said. That's a really powerful concept. But people thinking about just thinking about replacing breakfast with liquid nourishment is scary to people. So you have to baby step your way into it. There is a clinic in California called the True North Clinic, ran by Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and that guy's in his 60s and he looks really good, great skin, amazing. So all the people that I follow and stuff that I get my information from, they have personal success in their own life. They're walking, talking, living, breathing examples of abundant health and young longevity and great skin. And you can tell they take care of their insides because it shows on the skin. If you like, for the men and women out there listening, like if you want to have beautiful skin, you need to have a beautiful gut. And that's got to be the key. So fasting is very powerful. It allows the body a chance to rest and to clean itself up. And what you were saying there is true, because when you consume food, it's digesting food takes a tremendous amount of energy from the body. And if you're not spending all that energy to digest food, all that energy and your immune system gets rerouted to your activities of daily living, your energy levels, your brain, your mental clarity, and to allow the body to completely clean itself up and get rid of all these dead cells and rejuvenate itself. So fasting is very important, but start with just replacing breakfast with liquid nourishment. And then maybe after you get that down for a month or two, then you're like, I'm going to do a 1 day juice fast. Or maybe then you replace lunch too with liquid nourishment. You do that and have dinner. And then maybe down the road, you replace all 3 of them with liquid nourishment. And then voila, you just did juice fasting for 1 day and your body's going to love you for it. And then you can slowly babe your way into maybe 1 day you do I made it 5 days on water, and that was like the 4th and 5th day. I was like, woo-hoo. But it took me years to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, so here's the deal. We can't tell them everything in one episode. So what I'm going to do in Richards, we're going to go ahead and wind this down. We're going to call this our Christmas podcast episode, since it's pretty obvious in the background behind you guys. For sure, you got your Christmas presents there. We are coming up, and I guess the greatest Christmas present that we can have is our own health and our own wealth. So those are things that we try to strive for here on the Health and Wealth Podcast. So I want to go ahead and take us out and say, join us on the next podcast, because we're going to give you more tips on your health and your wealth that you just can't get anywhere else. So for Tim James, my co-host of Chemical Free Body, and his better half, Rebecca Wolf, and my better half, Christina Wilcoxon, I'm Carter Wilcoxon. Everybody have a very Merry Christmas, and thank you for joining us for our most recent Health and Wealth Podcast. We'll see you next time in Richards. Thank you again. Hey, Enrichers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode, and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.